Alia Jacta Est. As this channel just got 10,000 subscribers, so thanks to all subscribers for that, I will of course hold my promise with pleasure and show you my Roman Empire in-game time speedrun, where I restored the ancient empire in only 29 years, so in 1474. And that is actually a world record that I did on the current patch 1.37, where it requires you to conquer 100 provinces more than most other Roman Empire speedruns did before patch 1.36. And if you want to know how this was possible in Iron Man mode with no exploits apart from save scumming, and if you want to know as what nation I did this with, spoiler, it's not the Ottoman Empire, then lean back and enjoy the video. Roma Invicta. But let's start from the beginning. As I started thinking about this run and which nation I want to play as, I had one thing clear in mind. I didn't want to do it as the Ottomans, and I was sure that the Ottomans might actually be worse for that on the current patch with my game plan. Because with the new decision you now need a lot more provinces, either in Britain or deep into the HRE, which is in total 425 provinces that you need. So I knew that I needed three things above everything else. First, a casus belli that saves me from unjustified demands and their diplo cost. Second, I needed an insane war score cost reduction modifier. And third, I needed a power base strong enough to enforce the first two things by war. And all of that without a single national idea or idea group unlocked, because I needed the time and the monarch power elsewhere. So these three things are basically everything that this run was built around. And the best starting nation for that is England. So to begin with, I actually vassalized a few Irish minor nations to complete a mission that gave me 50 reform progress before I did the estate stuff. And you're going to see within the video that reform progress will be a very important resource for me. But anyways, you can see I'm holding the Surrender of Main event right now just to regain my morale and garrisons, and also to ally Burgundy, which I did very early. And of course, I could call them into the war against France, into the 100 Years' War, and they would help me a lot, and I would even give them land later, because I want to PU them through the Burgundian inheritance, of course. And now you can see that this war is actually very, very easy to fight. Basically, the only difficulty is to time it with the War of Roses, because the War of Roses will, of course, trigger within the first 3 years of the game, and typically you won't be able to finish that war by that time. So you would actually need to, siege a few forts, push them back a little bit, and then return to your homeland to complete the War of Roses disaster. And that is exactly what I did right here. I just fought the war for a little bit and then returned to my home island to fight the War of Roses disaster. Just as we are talking about the War of the Roses, I of course save scummed for a ruler with enough diplo and mill points. Also admin points were quite relevant, but not that important than the others. But that's maybe the moment to talk about save scumming for this campaign. Because you see, I wanted to get a world record in-game time on this run, and this is literally impossible without a few exploits. And the main exploit that I was using is of course save scumming, because save scumming lets you PU Burgundy at the right time, inherit Burgundy at the right time. It also gives you, as you saw just a second ago, rulers that are better than average, that you definitely need, because your monarch power generation is capped on the time you want to finish the run, right? So this is basically a thing that I continue to do throughout the entire campaign when something really bad happened, or when it was important, for example, to become the Pope in the beginning of the game. You're going to see that in a second, that I was elected the Pope after, I save scummed for that like an hour or something. So at some point it's really important to get like a milestone such as the Burgundian inheritance or becoming the Pope for the AE impact reduction and so on, to even be able to achieve it that early as I was anticipating. But everything else that I did was completely legit, and therefore you could replicate this run without save scumming, but of course you would need like hundreds of runs for that. So, just for my sanity and for my time consumption that this run already took with save scumming, I couldn't do it without it, but just the info for you so that you know. But now you can see I'm piecing out France, and I'm not only taking the Union, I'm also taking Toulouse and Narbonne, which I needed to lose to take Narbonne, but I took the province on the Mediterranean coast for colonial range, as well as I also gave one province to Burgundy, which gave them favors, as well as it doesn't really matter basically, right? Because I will inherit Burgundy later as well. So I just did that peace deal and took the Union with France very early into the game, of course. And then I completed missions for the British mission tree first by holding the event of the Destiny of England, which gave me 25 reduced liberty desire for France. And then after that I chose the Angevin Empire path for the missions for France. As well as I, of course, cored Narbonne, which I wanted to finish as soon as possible so that I can then core other provinces in the Mediterranean Sea. But now you can see after I clicked the missions for the Angevin Empire, I can complete the second mission again, which gives me more liberty desire reduction, as well as unlocks a parliamentary issue that I'm not going to do yet because I have to do a generic parliamentary issue before that. So I have to wait until 55 to do that. But what now starts basically is the colonization of Mediterranean islands, not only for colonial range, but also for borders of nations that I want to attack later, as well as, of course, the Malta province for the Malta Force monument that will be a very important thing to have later when it comes to the peace deals. You're going to see what I mean when it comes to that point. So you can see that I was taking just a few provinces, just one province from Aragon, as well as a humiliation to start my golden era very early into the game, which of course lasts way above the end of this run, right? So I wanted to start as early as possible. And also I took, of course, Malta for the Malta Force, as well as for the colonial range for Tunis. So now I could claim a Tunisian province, recruit some mercenaries, and then demand that from them without a war. I just threatened war on them and they gave it to me, which gave me then the range to claim the Mamluks already in 1453. And then the Mamluks, of course, were my instant next war, because you're going to see in a second what I take in the peace deal. I wanted to not only take a border with the Mamluks, of course, I need that later, you're going to see in a second why, but I also wanted to have the lands that you need to form Jerusalem. Because England has one big problem, it has a locked government type, tier 1 government type, and I wanted to do some stuff with reform progress farms later, which I need to have, first of all, a tier 1 government reform that I can choose. So I need to switch out of the government reform that I have from England, and to do that I actually used Jerusalem. You're going to see when it comes to that. Also, I could actually diplomatically vassalize Epirus, and they conquered one province from Byzantium, which I immediately seized. And that meant that I didn't need to do anything like wars or something to get a border with the Ottomans. I just had a border straight away. And therefore my colonization in the Mediterranean was finished, and I now had to focus on the conquest of the French region, because I need the entire French region for the last Angevin mission that I want to click. Now, after 10 years passed, I could actually do the generic parliamentary issue that I was talking about, which is called curtail French nobility, and I need that for one very important mission in the Angevin mission path. And basically I'm curtailing the nobility, and after that I'm immediately clicking the decision for the unique parliamentary issue that I had just unlocked in the mission before that, so that I would actually get the mission done for curtailing French nobility, as well as the unique parliamentary issue that gives me a lot of prestige that was all converted into monarch power, as well as it gives me a very vital 50 relations with France, which I need 150 relations later in the game. So I really need that relation modifier. And in the war with Provence, I actually did a quite interesting peace deal. I took only the provinces down on the Mediterranean coastline, as well as Verdun, because this is a province in the HRE, and therefore they moved their capital not to a province in the HRE. Otherwise, if you don't take Verdun, they're going to move their capital there, and then they are inside the HRE, which means that Brittany and Burgundy can't attack them anymore. And that is exactly what I abused, because after I, completely destroyed Provence, they of course were so weak that then Burgundy attacked them for the, Lorraine lands that they desire, as well as Brittany attacked them for the Anjou province. And this means that, first of all, the Lorraine provinces, I will get them completely for free in terms of AE, because Burgundy takes it, as well as I want to attack Brittany anyways. And then in that Brittany war, there was also Scotland in the same war, they were allied, and I used that opportunity to take 2 Scottish provinces from them, which will be relevant in the next part of the video, which is for the reform farm. And then of course I fed all of the provinces in France region that I conquered to France, so that they, they have to core it, and I'm inheriting them anyways later on. So I really saved my admin power and my diplo power for the next upcoming strategy. And that next upcoming strategy is the first of 2 parts from reaching maximum government reforms. Because there is a reform farm that only works if you are already on tier 6 government reforms. And that means that I need to reach tier 6 government reforms way earlier than I would otherwise be able to do, because of course I can't wait until I get that, tier 6 is like 1480s, I can't wait that long. So that is why I formed, first of all, Jerusalem to get rid of my tier 1 reform, as I said, that is locked, so that I could then choose my tier 1 reform as I want. In terms of which government reform I wanted to choose, I want, of course, to choose a government reform that has a parliament and a government reform that is culture-based. I actually uploaded a video on that a while ago, so if you want to know details about that, you can just watch that video if you want. But basically what I did is I destated everything except my capital state, of course, and except the Scottish province and the one Basque province that I start with in Labour, which I both had 20 development in. So I had 20 Scottish development and 20 Basque development, and therefore I could actually make Basque and Scottish my primary culture just by stating and destating the provinces, okay? And therefore I could, take the Basque tier 1 reform that has a parliament, switch out of the Basque culture, which immediately disables that tier 1 reform, and then take the Scottish reform that also has a parliament, and then switch out of the Scottish culture, which also immediately gets rid of the tier 1 government reform for free. which means that with that tactic I could basically take 30 reform progress from the parliament issue per 100 diplo points, which is not as effective as the next reform farm that I can start with tier 6 reforms reached, but it is efficient enough to do it on time before I need to start my wars. And then in the meantime, I also save scum for my ruler death, which means that now my regencies on the throne that I took from Bohemia, I also did a video about that, so if you want to know details, just check that out. But basically that allowed me to trigger an event later that switches me to Hussite religion, as my consort ruler was Hussite. And the Hussite religion will actually be the religion that I need for my final build. And then after I was done with the government reform farm for tier 5 that I got, I could actually, complete the missions of Jerusalem, as well as wait for the event that I was hoping for, which is constitutional restoration. Then I could reform England again. And then again, I made a video on the constitutional restoration already like a few days ago, which explains that in detail. So if you want to know anything about that event, how it works, how you can abuse it, watch that video. It is really way easier to have a separate video explaining that than extending the video over here even more. But basically what this event does is it enacts the tier 6 parliamentarism reform as long as you don't have a parliament. Okay, and what you can do then is that you can actually switch to a theocracy with the tier 6 government reform, and then immediately, while holding the event on the screen, switch back to a monarchy, and then without clicking any reforms yet, click the event option that enacts the tier 6 reform, and then you can take all the reforms up to tier 6 completely for free. Which means every time you trigger that event and switch to a theocracy and then back to a monarchy, every time you do that loop, you gain 900 reform progress. But while I'm doing that, in the meantime, I also got the event that I was talking about for the Hussite religion. But anyways, this is basically everything for this part of the setup. So after that, I was Hussite religion, as well as I had enough reform progress to enact the highest tier government reforms. And then the next part of the setup was Burgundy. You see, Burgundy has conquered, of course, the entire Lorraine area, as well as one province from Savoy as well. The other one I had to conquer, sadly. But that means that I needed to inherit them. And I, of course, saved scum for the Burgundian ruler death. And then I got the Burgundian inheritance, which lets me complete the third out of 3 missions that lead to the Angevin Empire. Now, there's actually a very interesting fact about the Angevin Empire, that is that you can actually form the Angevin Empire without the tech requirement of Tech 10 that you need for the decision if you don't have an English parliament, which I of course don't have. I was switching to theocracy, back to monarchy and so on. So I wasn't locked into that English government reform that gives me the English parliament, and therefore I could click the mission for the Angevin Empire without admin Tech 10, and it immediately meant that I inherit France and all of France's subjects. And I even kept my Jerusalem ideas over here because I need the 15% morale for the wars later. But now that I'm the Angevin kingdom and I have Burgundy under my union, I can finally switch to the government reform that I want to be until the end of the game, which is theocracy. I want to be a theocracy, and you're going to see it while I'm going through the reforms right now. There are insane reforms in theocracy. First of all, there are a lot of reforms that buff your military, starting with the tier 1 reform actually, that gives you 10% morale damage dealt. As well as there is also stuff for morale of armies and shock damage. There is one reform that gives morale damage received minus 10%. As well as, of course, there is a reform that gives you the open public elections. So an election type that basically works like the Dutch Republic, except that if the militarists are in power, you gain 15% war score cost reduction versus other religions. And that is, of course, one that I want to take immediately. As well as the last tier, which is very interesting, gives you minus 30% war score cost versus other religions, which I don't want to take yet, because I only need that once I peace out. For the moment, I need one modifier more than that, which is a CB against all of the nations that I want to fight. And that is why I enacted the Global Crusade, and that gives you a special CB against all bordering heretics or heretics that you have a claim on. Which for me also includes the entire northern Italy, because I get claims from the mission tree for that. If you just have a look on this insane casus belli, then you notice that this casus belli actually gives me 75% cost for all provinces, okay? So just using that CB already reduces the cost of taking provinces by 25%. As well as it gives me more prestige, and a very important thing, the war goal is show superiority, okay? So I don't have to siege anything to get the war goal, I just have to fight a lot of battles and win a lot of battles, which is very easy because I was focusing on mill the entire game, so I will have Tech 6 advantage once I declare war on basically every nation that I'm fighting. And also very important is that this CB lets you annex nations, provinces, without paying Diplo points for unjustified demands. And then the next thing that I needed to make sure that it happens before the war is that I inherit Burgundy, because I need that land directly to form the Roman Empire. I of course safe-scanned that. It was not really a pleasure to do that, but I made it in the end, and that means that I now have a very clean foreline to the entire rest of Europe, basically, that I can defend on in the war that comes next. As well as, of course, I inherited all of their troops and all of their lands that I could state after becoming an empire, which means that I had a lot of income by that point, a lot of force limit, as well as a lot of manpower gain per month. And in terms of income, there is actually another very interesting mission for the Angevin Empire, which gives you -2 interest per annum. And I of course also had the burger privilege that reduces that, which means that by that point I was almost at the minimum of 1% interest, which means that I could take up to 120 loans of a size of 640 ducats. So by that point I basically had infinite money to work with. And that is now the moment that the great wars for the Roman Empire restoration start. And that is also why I conquered provinces all around the Mediterranean, because now I had a CB on all big nations in the Mediterranean. I could declare a direct war on Castile and co-belligerated Portugal. I could declare a direct war on Aragon, as well as the Pope, and many more nations in Italy, of course, as I had claims on all of these provinces, as well as I declared a war on Switzerland, which of course calls Austria in as a co-belligerated nation. I could of course also fight the Mamluks with that special CB, as I had a border with them, as well as with the Ottomans that I had a border after seizing the province from Epirus. So after I declared one war per month, basically, for, for 1 year almost, I was at war with literally the entire Roman Empire provinces that I needed. And this means that I now only needed to win that war, which wasn't that difficult. It was show superiority and war goal, and I had Tech 6 advantage. The biggest downside was actually that I had to siege a lot of force without artillery that I sadly couldn't inherit from France. I don't know why. but I really needed to deal with these forts quickly, and that's why I bombed a lot of forts with the naval barrage of my navy, that I also got a flagship supporting that. So that is basically what I did for the next few years, and I've talked so much already, so I just want you to enjoy this war and enjoy the power of the combined Great Holy War CB and minus 70% war score costs versus other religions. That is the last day of the Angevin Holy State, because now on the 24th of August 1474, so in less than 30 years, I am now able to click the final decision to restore the Roman Empire. And of course, I can complete some missions from this mission tree, it doesn't really matter. As well as I can now rival the new emperor, Poland, as well as Muscovy. As well as now I can actually take my admin technology, but anyways, it really doesn't matter, because now I can finally restore the Roman Empire. Rome will become my capital, I will become the Roman Empire. The entire French culture group will become Roman culture, as well as some prestige, and of course the government reforms that I can't use because I'm a theocracy. But anyways, that is the moment you've all been waiting for, so here is the Roman Empire. And of course I took the Roman ideas, even though I have not a single national idea fulfilled, but the 5% discipline is not bad. Anyways, this is it. I am the Roman Empire. You can see all of that stuff is of course not cored, which means that I have right now a 2,356% overextension, as well as I'm even over my governing capacity, even though I have only stated London and Rome states. So that is how insane my development is. I have of course 4,171 development now, and this is of course me being the first great power, if I let 1 month tick by of course. And I think there is one more map mode that you all want to see, which is of course the coalition map mode, because actually every single nation that knows who I am wants to join the coalition. But funnily enough, while I was piecing out all of these wars at the same time, basically, the coalition that formed after my first peace deal actually dissolved while getting more stronger and annexing more nations. And therefore I think even though every nation that I know can join the coalition, I think it won't even trigger, because they think I'm so strong right now with my 253,000 troops, as well as Miltech 7 of course for the artillery in the last few years of this campaign. And then there are two more things that I want to say before I end the run, which is first of all, shout out to the guy that formed the Roman Empire in 1471, which is of course 3 years earlier than I did right now, which is an insane thing, so really well done there. But I think I can still say that this is the current world record, because I did it of course on the current patch and therefore conquered 100 provinces more than most other Roman Empire speedruns did, including the one that I just mentioned. And then the second thing that I wanted to say is, of course, thank you to all of my subscribers, and all of these subscriptions really helped to grow this channel to that point where it is right now. And I hope it goes on a little bit further, with future videos of course coming that are also very interesting. So if you want to see that as well and you haven't subscribed yet, you can still do that of course. I will upload videos like this in the future. So I hope this channel grows even further, and that's it for today, because here it is, the Roman Empire in 1474. So let's end this run with the words of the Emperor Augustus himself. Acta est fabula, subscribe.